Hello and welcome to Just One More Watch. Bit of an odd fish for us to have a look at today in the form of this Seiko Digi Tuna. But is it actually a tuna or is it actually a Fieldmaster? And that is where the fun and games begins with this watch. I think it's a really hard watch to define, really hard watch to categorize, and I think quite a hard watch to determine who it's actually for. When this one was released about 3 years ago, everybody said, oh, it's Seiko doing a G-Shock. It's them trying to muscle in on Casio's market share for that end of the kind of rugged, robust digital watch. Believe me, this is not a G-Shock. Last week I did a long-term update on the Casio, and I said in that video, one of the favorite things that I like doing with my Casio when non-watch people ask me what I'm wearing is to lob it as far as I can across the room. I would not do that with this Seiko, so it doesn't cover all of Casio's bases there. Apart from anything else, I wouldn't do it because this one doesn't belong to me. It belongs to my good friend and long-time channel supporter, Ashley, over in Melbourne. Now, Ashley has a big and eclectic watch collection, so I can see this one fitting right in with him. There is one good reason, however, why this watch would not fit into my watch collection, and I'll show you that reason a bit later on. Let's flip the camera and have a look at it. So, what is it? How much does it cost and where can you get it from? Well, this is the SBEP 003. These digital tunas are actually JDM models, so they were never released overseas. You're best sourcing them still direct from Japan. Plenty of Japanese retailers have them. I would also suggest having a look on eBay. I know Ashley got his from Nomon Watches out of Singapore. I'll leave a couple of links in the description of the video. But as always, do your own digging, do your own research. And do bear in mind when you're buying a JDM Seiko, you're probably only going to get 1 year of warranty, but check with the retailer. Now, when these were released in 2018, I believe they released 5 different colours. 2 of them were special editions though, so there are 3 that you can still purchase on a reasonably regular basis. The 001, the 003, which is the one I've got, or rather Ashley has, and the 005. Now, they all have negative displays. There does, however, appear to be one digital tuna available with a positive LCD display. More on that later. 2 things to note here. The first is the size of the instruction manual. You all know how much I love instruction manuals. The second thing is the size. It is a whopper. I avoided the Tuna series for the longest time. I think it was the last of the Seiko series of watches that I hadn't actually bought and owned, but I picked one up last year and I must say it is more wearable than the dimensions would suggest. Those dimensions being 49.5 millimeters in diameter. It is ginormous. 49.5 millimeters lug to lug, so it's basically circular. 14.3 millimeters thick, 22 mil lug width. Now, that set of dimensions on paper, I'd be like, yeah, nah, as the Aussies say. However, it only weighs 80 grams. Believe me, once you get this thing on wrist, it almost disappears. Hard to believe, I admit, but it does. It almost disappears. I think that weight combined with a very, very comfortable silicone strap, it's one of those classic accordion straps, means that this genuinely is useful for sports. Not a sports watch, but this is a watch you can wear running, you can wear it swimming, you can wear it playing tennis or something similar if that is your bag. Now, mostly plastic construction. The shroud, the famous tuna shroud, is made of kind of plastic, as is the bezel. There is precious little metal in here at all. The buttons are metallic. On this 003, they are black coated, and the case back, there's a stainless steel case back. I'll show you that one a bit later on. Super soft silicone rubber strap with another PVD coated unsigned buckle and tang. So the plastic shroud and bezel are both matte black, and there are 4 little metal hex head screws holding the shroud to the case. You can take it off, but I wouldn't really recommend it because that's what makes a tuna after all. 1 button on this side at the kind of 430 position, so it's still a bit of a Seiko there, and 3 on the other side. Seiko refers to those buttons as A, B, C, and D for operational purposes. Now let's have a look at the watch face because there is clearly plenty going on there. I do have to be careful what angle I hold it at. That is a piece of Hardlex covering the dial. Hardlex is Seiko's own proprietary mineral crystal. A couple of scratches on there already near the set. Ashley decided to break this one in by taking it to the Gold Coast theme parks for the weekend, so I think it got a bit of a rattling on a couple of roller coasters. Now, Hardlex with no anti-reflective coupled with a negative display digital LCD LCD display. Perhaps not the most legible of watches, this one, in all honesty, but when you can see what's going on, there is a lot going on that dial. Big LCD readout of the current time. There's the day of the week and the date of the month indicated permanently just above, and one of my favourite features of this watch actually, there is also a second time zone permanently displayed underneath. Now AM PM indicators, you can obviously set these to 24-hour military time if you prefer. The little globe there denotes that this is the world time and it is daylight saving time. I've got this set for GMT. There is also a battery indicator. I'll talk more about this one in just a second. It is a solar watch capable of 5 months of charge. If this one runs out on you, you literally and figuratively need to get out more. It also has a minute indicator running around the outer edge there, replacing a standard minute hand. A nice feature, meaning you can use the bezel as you normally would for a dive watch. Now it is a bi-directional bezel, so this one has 200 meters of water resistance, bi-directional frictional bezel, so it's not therefore ISO certified, even though this one probably has more similarities to a dive computer than your average Seiko Prospects dive watch does. Alright, let's go through the features. You saw the size of the instruction manual. I will try and keep this as brief as possible. It's solar as mentioned. The solar cell is located between the bezel, between the aluminium bezel insert with lume pip, and between that minute indicator that I showed you earlier on. It is quite neatly done. I really do enjoy having the world time there and the home time on permanent display. If you press the adjust button, it then brings the full world time mode and you can cycle through 44 world cities, switching between daylight saving time and non-daylight saving time, and they give you a 3 hours GMT plus, 4 hours GMT plus 3.5, and so on. Do bear in mind you can't use that as a shortcut when you're traveling. Well, you can, but if you set an alarm, it still sets the alarm to your home time, so it might end up waking you up or not waking you up, as the case may be. Back into the regular time here, if you press the mode button, the D button in the bottom left hand corner, it takes you into a chronograph in the first instance. Start, stop and reset. If you press the button a second time, it takes you into recall mode. Now I said this would be useful for sports. It will recall up to 99 uses of the chronograph. So if you are running laps and you want to record those, or if you are swimming laps and you want to record those, I mean, I can barely stay afloat, so I cannot imagine having the wherewithal to press a button on my watch every time I touch the wall, but there you are. You can go through your previous stopwatch activities and it will give you the total time. It will also give you the lap time, your best lap, your average lap, and so on. So relatively useful here. Perhaps it's not a Sun 2 or a Garmin, even though it has that chunky feel, but it does do a little more than a G-Shock in that regard. One more push of the mode button and you're into countdown timer. You can count down from 10 seconds to 10 hours in 1 second increments, and you can set it to repeat up to 99 times. So if you really want your watch to beep at you every minute for 99 minutes, then that is possible. One more press of the mode button and you're into alarm. It has 3, 1, 2, 3 alarms. One more press goes into the solar indicator. Now this is quite useful. It tells you your battery. You saw I had the 2 bars earlier on. That's just over half here on this scale on the left hand side, and it shows you how much charge the solar cell is receiving at the moment. If I bring in my UV torch and point it, there we are, straight up to 4. So you can leave it on a window ledge or blast it with a UV torch if you do want to give it a proper charge. Turn that off, one more push of the mode button and you're back to the regular time. Now one other feature I need to show you is the electroluminescent backlight. Now the backlight is not operated by touching one of the 4 buttons, it is operated by tapping firmly on the watch when it is on your wrist. There's a little accelerometer inside the watch which operates that. It does have 3 levels of sensitivity though, so you can almost get it to work like it does on a Casio. When you flick the watch towards you, the backlight will go on. It only lasts for a couple of seconds though. That unfortunately is not adjustable. Case back is stainless steel, screw on, and I must say rather attractive. There is a nice brush running vertically the length of the case back. They've also marked it with the buttons, so if for some reason you take this one off, you're not tempted to mount it upside down the wrong way up. But let's get it on wrist. I did suggest earlier on that it virtually disappeared. It certainly doesn't look like it virtually disappears. There is no slipping this one under a cuff of a shirt. I would suggest it will also struggle under a jumper. Really, this is for short sleeve shirts only, I'm guessing. It does wear better than you think though. 80 grams, super comfortable silicone strap, and look at how flat it sits on the wrist. Those lugs really help conform to my 7-inch wrist anyway. There's no overhang. Very, very surprising how well these tunas wear. And that's the overhead shot. Unfortunately, in my studio lights, this negative display not doing itself any favours. Like I said, it's not the most legible watch in the world. You can actually adjust that contrast through 4 different levels, but even at its most vibrant, it's not particularly vibrant. And the same applies when I take the watch outside. You can see how that hardlights crystal with no anti-reflective coating interacts with the negative display. It's not a nightmare, but it's not as legible as it would be if it was a positive LCD. And that's it on wrist. 22mm lug width means you can easily swap this one out for the strap of your choice. You can also take a bit of extra weight off if you so choose by putting it on a lighter or slimmer strap. Looking down the wrist, yeah, it certainly looks like a bit of a lump, but it just doesn't feel like a lump when you've got it on your wrist. And that's the pocket shot. I'm not suggesting that you'll get away with this if you have much smaller wrist than I do. Definitely it's a big watch. Definitely it would suit big guys, but I don't think it looks out of place on me at all. A bit of a surprise, these tunas, they really are. So far more wearable than you'd think then, but I still have a few moans and niggles with this one today. I'm sure some of them have become apparent over the course of the video so far. The negative display, they always look cool, but they're not all that practical, not all that legible. This would be so much better if it had a standard LCD display, I think. Also, that aluminium bezel insert is going to scuff and scratch, as is that hardlights crystal, because they are not protected in any way by the shroud. I did say it's not a G-Shock, but why didn't they just extend that up by a couple of mil to actually give the watch a bit more protection? So what is this then? Because it's clearly not quite a G-Shock substitute. Is it therefore a Sun 2 or a Garmin substitute? Well, perhaps if you need some of the features that this one has, if you want a time lapse but you just can't bear the connectivity that comes with a proper smartwatch, sports oriented smartwatch, then maybe this Seiko is for you. Or if you want some of the digital features you get with a G-Shock but you're prepared to cope without some of the ruggedness that comes with a G-Shock, then maybe this Seiko is for you. But for me personally, if I wanted a solar-powered digital watch with world time capabilities, a chronograph, countdown timer, alarm, and a decent electroluminescent backlight, I would use my Casio G-Shock G5600E, which has all of the features, nearly all of the features of the Seiko, but for a third of the price, and I have no problems treating it roughly. This watch, therefore, really I think for the die-hard Seikophiles only. So there you have it, the Seiko Digi Tuna. A Seiko G-Shock it is not. It just doesn't have the inherent ruggedness and forget about it mentality that is found in every single G-Shock. So what is it then? Is it a Sun 2 or a Garmin for people who just can't commit to that level of connectivity? Perhaps. Certainly a useful feature set in terms of the lap times, etc. And I do love the fact that you can flip back and forth between those 2 world times at any given moment. I think though really it is best described as a digital watch for Seikophiles. If you're a massive fan of Seiko and you've already got a dozen in your collection and you fancy something a bit different that isn't going to break the bank, that is where I see this one working. Big shout out to you again, Ashley. Thank you very much for loaning me the watch, and thank all of you for watching. I will see you in a future video.